Hello, world. Welcome to the 153rd, believe it or not, climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm on location at the Gettysburg National Battlefield, and I will talk about that in a little bit, why I'm here and the significance of that regarding climate change. So this is climate change emergency protest number 153. Next week will be number 154 on November 19th, 2021. Today is November 12th, 2021. And the title of this was Nobody is Safe. We're in a climate change emergency, and this has to be treated like an emergency. And the conference going overseas right now in Glasgow, Scotland, is the COP26, and they're not treating that like an emergency. They're treating it like some sort of financial love fest for each other, rather than having individual protesters and youngsters involved and a broad spectrum. And it's really a shame as to what's happening, and they'll have no teeth and they'll come out with nothing the way they're going. Right now, the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere is 414.94 parts per million. Next year, this is probably the lowest point it'll get, and it starts climbing from here on till May. And by May, I anticipate an average of 421 parts per million. If you factor in the equivalency of methane and all the other greenhouse gases, you're talking 600, 700 parts per million. Why is that significant? The safe zone that has been up till the year 1750, where there are very few feedback loops or no feedback loops, was 280 parts per million and below, down to 200 parts per million. Humans have only existed in that area. Right now, as I said, we're at 414, and the equivalency is 600 to 700 parts per million. So we're way out of line, 280 versus 700 parts per million. It's scary. There's organizations out there called 350.org and everything, commendable, but the idea that we can go up to 300 or down to 350 parts per million and not have any adverse effects is absolutely ludicrous. It is not based on science, and it's not based on human history. The COP26 and several protesters that are very famous have stated that there's a carbon budget and we only have 6 more years of carbon to put in the atmosphere. No, things are out of control already. The system is starting to break down, and you can see it through floods, fires, the droughts, the extreme heat we had in the Northwest and around the world. You get famines. Madagascar is in an absolute famine. The oceans have dead zones now, and also a lack of oxygen due to that, and also that there are garbage gyres in the oceans. There's a whole system breakdown going on. The Earth is letting us know that this is it. She's had enough with us, and we keep on our ways, and she's going to purge us just like a dog shaking a flea off its back. Right now, there are over 60 feedback loops, and you only need one feedback loop to cause other feedback loops in the atmosphere and around the Earth as far as the system goes. What is a feedback loop? For example, one would be the loss of Arctic sea ice. It's not gone all the time in the winter, but for the most part, it's disappearing fast, and a blue ocean event will be absolutely catastrophic for the whole planet, and no one even knows about it. So with feedback loop, you lose, for example, a loss of Arctic sea ice. Then you have the heating of the Arctic, because instead of being white and albedo reflecting the sun, it is dark and it absorbs the heat, and also the greenhouse gases trap more heat. You end up with more heating of the Arctic Ocean due to the darkness of the ocean, more loss of albedo. So it does a loop. And then that leads to permafrost thawing around the area where it has just melted. And what's significant about that? Well, the permafrost and the Arctic Ocean have extreme amounts of methane in it, which is also carbon dioxide in the long run. But methane, when it first comes out of the ground or wherever it comes from out of the ocean, is 162 times more potent as greenhouse gas than is carbon dioxide. You end up with the heating of the atmosphere. So this whole thing starts spinning around on itself and then causing other feedback loops. So that's why there's over 60 feedback loops right now going on in the whole planet. So the COP26 climate change conference ends today. It's Friday, and they've been doing this for 2 weeks. They had a whole year to figure out what they wanted to do and get all things arranged, and they did not do it. They're already setting up the next conference, which is COP27. This is the 26th year of doing this stuff, 27th year actually, and then next year will be the 28th. And at what point do you decide that enough is enough and we need to do something immediately? They need stronger. They're going to come up with stronger plans for next year for implementation of the 2015 Paris Agreement for climate change. That was 6 years ago, and the idea of saying, "Oh, next year we're going to do it," that'll be year number 8, and we'll finally start implementing the agreement we made 8 years ago. So the system has changed so much in the last 8 years, and in another 8 years we won't be around the way we're headed. So far, the United Nations has said that we're in a code red situation for humanity, meaning this is it. You can't get any worse than code red other than being code black, and you don't come back from extinction or dead. Once you're dead, you're dead. There is no coming back. There is no Lazarus going on, and there's no Jesus walking around raising the dead. This is code red. This is our last chance, and was our last chance with this COP26 conference. Now it's going to come down to people like you and me and corporations to do what the governments have no intention of doing at all, because they're so corrupt and greedy as to what's going on, and so inept and sinister. So right now the United Nations has done this code red. The worst case scenario, and they came out during the COP conference here, is saying that for them, or the worst case scenario with code red was 4.2 degrees Celsius increase over where we are now. So, with a 4.2 hotter world, we're cooked. There is no surviving this. Yeah, there will be pockets, such as the global south people that live in the Amazon and wherever else, that actually can adapt to change. But, cities such as New York City, or even this one here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, have no chance of surviving. It was probably 3 days of food, 5 days of food, and an all-out panic. And that's it. You're done. Then you go into starvation mode. The water systems break down, all sorts of stuff. And cities will not survive. You got these giant cities in India and giant cities in Europe, and they will not survive without food. And that's just the way it is. And when the system starts breaking down, as it is now, food will become more and more scarce. Prices will go up, as we're seeing right now, and it's going to be tough to hold on in many different ways. So this conference, during the COP, they came up with the statement came out that we're going to warm up 2.4 degrees, and saying that we're in a dire situation, and yet they kind of ignored it. And they're just going on making statements that they agree to work together. Wow, really helpful. So you end up with this greenwashing situation where they come up with these statements like net zero, net zero. Well, what that is that they agree to keep polluting the atmosphere. In exchange, they put in little trees, which have no value at all until they're 50 years old, around the earth, and plant for them. Well, part of this greenwashing also is that, we're planting trees as a corporation or as a government. So they order, for example, 1 million trees. Then they have them planted in the Amazon forest, 1 million trees. So the USA, for example, would take credit for 1 million trees. Then Brazil would take credit for planting 1 million trees. And the corporations that ship it over there would take credit for shipping the 1 million trees. So all of a sudden, 1 million trees ends up 3, 4, 5 million trees is being counted. And in reality, other than 1 million trees, this is you're miscounting everything, and it's just greenwashing. They're saying, "Oh, look at what we're doing," and a little tree does not absorb carbon dioxide the way a 50-year-old tree. Some of these trees here are very few now. We're here during the Civil War, during the Battle of Gettysburg, and that was in 1863. So it was a long time ago. So those trees are absorbers of carbon, but the problem is now with climate change, weather is warming, and now you got oak borer beetles and going into the trees and destroying the oak trees. So these trees will be gone probably in another 10 years, I would give it at most, before everything. This is a giant plain, and they're not preparing ahead for the situation at hand. So at the conference, other than the greenwashing, then you got an agreement for coal. Some of the countries agreed to cut back on coal and phase it out altogether. Well, India, China, Australia, USA refused to sign this agreement. So they're not serious about the very thing that's going to end all life on Earth. They're worried about a couple coal mining jobs when they're not worried about the 8 billion people that are on the planet. They can't even agree to reduce coal usage. Subsidies for oil industries and fossil fuel industries has not ended. It just keeps going on. These are basic things that could be done that they're choosing not to do. So this proves that they're out to kill you, and you better wake up and pay attention. So during the conference, USA and China agreed to work together to curb methane and deforestation. What a crock of crap. Out here, there's not one word about replanting this whole battlefield. There are 8,000 acres here. They could easily do it. I mean, look at this open area. Yeah, they grow corn, but a forest is much more important right now than that. You can have acres put aside for corn elsewhere. But this area could be a jewel for the whole United States and show the whole world that we're serious about climate change. And these kind of decisions are easy squeezy. If you can't end fossil fuel subsidies, if you can't think to replant an entire area like this as opposed to that, then your head is not screwed on right. And look, they opened up the area so you can look at the houses and the developments. That makes perfectly good sense. And then also what's going to happen here is you're going to end up with a deluge of rain, and this whole open area goes right into the little pretty town of Gettysburg. So this town is going to suffer consequences of the battlefield tearing down all these trees that used to be here when I was a kid, and opening up this huge swale which drains this huge area, and it goes right towards the town. So this town doesn't even know they're in jeopardy, and they totally are. And it's scary to see developing what's going to happen. I can see it happening. All you need is 10 inches of rain, and that's not out of the question. You get 20, 30 inches like they get sometimes in these rain bombs, and you're going to have a real situation going on downtown. All right, so, so with the methane that they agreed to curb, and also supposedly deforestation, it's kind of funny that in the United States, we had Barack Obama speak at the COP26 conference. I'm going to nail every president here, 3 presidents back, okay, for what they've done. They had Obama speaking. Yeah, great speaker, got the Nobel Peace Prize before he even took the presidency. But what happened is in 2012, he went to Oklahoma and bragged about how much pipe he and Joe Biden were laying around the whole country, and it was enough to go around the whole world, as well as drilling for gas and oil. USA became, instead of an oil gas importer, they became a gas and oil exporter. So that was Obama, and he spoke in front of Oklahoma in 2012. Look it up, it's an eye-opener. Then you have Trump. You know, Trump was a freaking nightmare for the environmental movement or anything with the environment. He pulled us out of the 2015 Paris Agreement, which, again, this doesn't have much teeth because they're not following through it. And then they also did drilling permits that were crazy amounts for the United States at the time. Then Joe Biden comes in. What does he proceed to do? He goes in the first day, acts like he's the climate change president, signs all these executive orders, and then proceeds over the next 10 months up till now, has issued at least 2,400 drilling permits around the country. Has also authorized the Willow Project, which is 1 billion barrels of oil over the next 30 years up in Alaska. Then on November 17th, coming up after the COP conference is ended, and this is shady deal. This is the kind of crap that goes on in politics. On November 17th, a few days from now, 80 million acres will be put up for auction in the Gulf of Mexico for lease for gas and oil rights. People don't know about this. This is what's going on. 80 million acres are going to be leased out. That's an area bigger than New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey combined. Okay, this is insanity what's going on. This is not a president who's climate change oriented. Wake up, people. Vote the same, get the same. You're going to get a Trump, you're going to get a Biden, it doesn't matter what. It's 2 cheeks of the same ass, and they are looking out for their friends and making money, all the money they can at your expense. Your kids are going to die, we're going to die as a result of their actions going on right now. Time to get pissed. Okay, now deforestation. Again, this is the Gettysburg battlefield. This has 8,000 acres in it. 8,000 acres. They could replant the whole damn thing, and different types of trees, not monoculture. You need to spread them out so that when trees like this start getting an oak borer beetle, the other trees survive. Nature will take over the rest if you just leave it alone and let it do its thing. So they could replant the whole park. This could be the jewel in the United States and go, hey, look at what we're doing, and it would be the beginning of a tourist attraction for that rather than some sort of Civil War battlefield that was a turning point of the whole Civil War. Very important at the time. They can have plaques, they can have books, they can have internet hookups as to see, what happened here. But right now, our lives are depending on this, and the idea of having this for historical preservation and leaving it up to us to die, and as a result of it, is insanity also. This is a governmental policy that is going on. Right now, the media is not reporting anything about climate change. The COP26 conference in the United States is not being reported. They're not reporting about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the desperate situation we're in concerning greenhouse gases. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, could report to the media every day about what they're doing about climate change and how serious it is, and make the case as to what's going on, bring on real scientists and people that know what's going on. The Congress could do that too. They could have daily conferences and talk about it, just like they did about coronavirus. Everyone's an expert in that. Why? because they had that every freaking day for the last 2 years about coronavirus. But they're not saying anything about climate change, which is way bigger than anything we could ever imagine, way bigger than all the wars combined that ever happened on Earth, way bigger than all the pandemics that ever happened. This is the extinction of 8 billion people going on, as well as all life on Earth. That's the situation we're running into. So they have not made the case to the public. Your politicians in your country have not made the case to the public. Yeah, the global South people have, because they're going underwater or burning up or starving to death. They're making the case, but not here in the global North where the media is located. The media needs to cover it, and you need to own the political they need to own the political high ground. Whatever party decides to follow through on climate change ends up being more worldly and having the political high ground. And people that say that climate change is a hoax, as Donald Trump said, would be laughed off the stage. Okay, they wouldn't even be given any airtime. You're going to have idiots on stage with people that know what's going on. That people know what's going on win out. The idiots are like the kid back in the back of the class that needs to be sent to the principal's office and say, bye-bye, you're fired, get out of here. So we need, if you had a situation here in the United States, as around the world as well, you usually have two diametric, supposedly opposed parties. Here in the United States, it's Democrats versus Republicans. Now, if they ended that and actually worked together, what would be the consequence of that? Oh, no more money because they don't have one group against the other. This is all money-making scheme as to Democrats versus Republicans and contributions they rely on. Oh, the Republicans are evil. Oh, the Democrats are evil. They're all whatever. They just throw things at each other. And you have that in your own countries going on. You have two different parties, and they're hamstringing the whole situation about climate change. These are two cheeks of the same ass. They're all about corporations and making money. Don't fool yourself. Your party is not on your side. It doesn't matter what party it is right now. We don't have any real People's Party going on in the world, and that needs to step up and happen. Once the Green Party gets in, yeah, they're wonderful initially, and then they become just like the Democrats and Republicans. They're worried about being elected rather than just getting the message out and doing the right thing. And they're worried about just trying to win over the other party. And that's not the way to look at it. This is a whole world event going on, and we need to look more worldly at each other and realize we're all connected and a part of each other. Now, locally, and I'm going to make people here angry, but what the hell? It's the same as everywhere else with politics. They recently had an election. There was no talk of climate change. There was no plans concerning proposals as to how to deal with climate change, no preparations for climate change in these towns, and they haven't hardened up their town for climate change. This swale, as I said, is going to flood someday, and it's going to bust ass into town, and it's going to flood a lot of the town. This town is fairly hilly, but the areas that the creek goes through are going to suffer unbelievable consequences. So they need to plan ahead. You need green acres. You need acres within towns that are green zones. The college that's in town as well as the town itself need to have a green day where everyone wears green and supports climate change and the environment. They need free public transportation, which they have in this town for these buses that are few and far between, but they need to be electric, not gas or propane or anything like that. They need to shut down the center of town so it takes the pollution away and can be more easily handled, and also creates a more healthy environment for the residents of the towns. They need electrical transports. They could hire drivers that drive smaller cars that are electric cars and transport people around and put them on your payroll just like you would with your 50 police officers or anything else. They become very important to the town. They could have solar lights in town. Stoplights, lighting systems could all be solar. They're not here. They're electrified. Chef's hats, little tiny, not tiny, but about 2 feet in diameter, 3 of them per house. Just cut a slice in the top ridge vents of the houses. And as the attics heat up, the heat goes up through these chef's hats and spins them, and it creates electricity. They could have solar shingles, which is unheard of in this area or anywhere else for the most part. You could have the greening of roofs where, you have plants up there on flat roofs of buildings, so it cuts down on the amount of air conditioning needed. They could give tax breaks to stores within town, those ones that are becoming more green-oriented and renewable and are looking forward as opposed to backwards and staying with the same old technology. They could give tax breaks, give awards to those stores. They could end gas, this is big, they could end gas construction in Gettysburg and around the world. No more houses built using natural gas, which is purely methane. You just put an edict in there, any houses built are all electric. That's just the way it is. They could have more tourism, and they could have tours within towns explaining what they're doing with their greening of their towns. You could have solar pressured sidewalks, solar pressured roads that recharge based on the weight of people walking or cars driving. As I said, you should have green areas for bicycling. There should be whole paths going on. Now, another group within this area is the local Democratic Facebook page. Really commendable, except the fact that they're constantly fighting about the Republicans in the last election and the fear that's going on in the next election. That's all they talk about. You got to quit fighting the Republicans. You got to become more worldly. You're better than this. That's why you guys went to college and you have thought processes in your head. You need to look out at the whole world and go, hey, how are we affecting the whole world? How do we fit in with the whole world? They need to lead the way for the future. This local page, they don't lead the way for anything. I try to post these videos, and the last two have not been posted on the Democratic page in Adams County, Pennsylvania. So check it out. I had previous videos they were posting. Articles that I'm posting now don't get posted on their page, because why? I'm upsetting the system, and they might have to change their ways, and someone might actually start thinking that this is not a good path we're on. So if they led the way for the future, made their case known as to what's happening around the world, any idiot like Donald Trump or someone like that saying climate change is a hoax, and then these doofuses that think it's not real would be laughed off the stage. They wouldn't even have any footing at all. They'd get their 10% vote because some people are just plain dumb and dogmatic. But for the most part, they'd be laughed away once you make your case and make it known, do your daily broadcasts as to what's happening around the world. They need to make the case, as I said. They need to have cooperation, though, with each other eventually, and through vision. If you start elevating yourself to a higher level, those who are opposing you will actually have to do that as well. The infighting, the dirty fight on the ground with each other, knuckle fights going on here with the Democrats and Republicans in the United States, as your parties around the world, is just a knuckle fight. It's just bullshit. So they need to wake up, look more worldly, and have a better vision as to what's going on. If you really care, if they care, if your party cares about anyone under 30 years old, they're proving that they don't care about it. So you need to call out your party and do these type of broadcasts and say, hey, you guys aren't doing the right thing. You got to wake up. So in town, we have a thing called Gettysburg College. Nobody uses those kids. Nobody talks to those kids. They're a separate entity, and they're totally unaware as to how bad the situation is. I see them walking around, going to their classes and doing whatever. And there's no green movement. There's no hippie type things going on. No thought process as to climate change and how it's going to affect their lives. Their lives, once they get out of college, are going to become pure hell, worse and worse and worse. And this is the local college, and the town needs to work with them. And the college needs to work with the town, and the kids need to become totally aware as to what's happening with climate change and how dire the situation is. There's no protest. There has never been a climate change protest at this college. You did not see that during Vietnam. Vietnam was a situation back in the 60s and 70s where college kids protested constantly, and they caused the whole war to end. Okay, it was with their protests. They convinced their parents how bad it was, and everyone got on board for the most part. Some people thought that we shouldn't have pulled out. We should still be there to this day, kind of like Afghanistan. But in reality, the college kids ended the Vietnam War. So we need idea workshops locally, too, as far as ideas about what we can do, and people sending in ideas and people proposing ideas. So with the news and the politicians, if they know what is happening, or no, let's go back another way. If they don't know what's happening around the world concerning climate change, then they're pure idiots and they shouldn't be in charge. If they do know what is happening and extinction is a real possibility, then this is a case of mental illness, a sickness, a sinister construct that they have going on here, trying to keep money coming into the corporations. This is a path of murder and suicide. Your politicians and media are engaged in the murder of you and your family and everyone that you love, and this is what's coming. Our system is breaking down right now. If you notice all the floods, the fires, the heat domes, and everything else, this is a warning from Earth that says, these are the last calls I'm going to give you, and this is your last chance to survive. So climate change is like karma. If you treat nature and the Earth like a toilet, it will return the same to you, and it'll get all over your face and all over you. It's going to come back with a vengeance, and it is coming back with a vengeance for the people that have already died. So people need to get out of their own way. They need to actually look up, look down, look around as to what's going on with the environment and see how things have changed. Talk to an older person who actually pays attention to how things used to be. This is November. There is no air blowing. And why is that? It's because the Arctic is broken down, and it's not the way it used to be, and there's no cold air pushing down right this second from the Arctic. In the winter it will, in the deep winter, but right now November winds should be blowing right through me, and they're not. So what can you do? Look around, observe everything's going on, talk to friends about it. Go to, on your television, there's a free thing called Tubi, Tubi, and within the news is a thing called Pattern, Pattrn, I think it is. And it's under the news, as I said, and they talk about climate change, and they have really good programs on there. Also on YouTube, if you look up climate change on YouTube and the scientists and the protests going on, you'll become highly educated about it real quick. You can also go down my Facebook page, Tanya's Facebook page, and look up climate change. I do nothing but report about climate change on there, and you can become pretty well educated pretty quickly about that. So we all need to look to the future, not scoring points against each and every party that opposes us. Realize that they are people too, and they need to be brought up to speed. You need to be brought up to speed if you believe your Democrat or Republican Party is all that, and they're trying to save you, because they're trying to end you right now. Maybe not, people don't know why they're doing this, but that's what the end game is for this. So if you love your kids and grandkids, then show it. Get out and protest. Do broadcasts like this. Talk to your friends and family. If you vote the same, the next elections, wherever you are, you're going to get the same. Continuing on this path is murder. And you're participating in the murder-suicide of everything you love and all the environment by voting the same and keeping the same people in there. You might think that they're different, they're fighting for you, but unless their policies are all about climate change, number one, then they're not real and they're not taking this seriously. This is it. This is extinction. You cannot come back from the dead. One time shot at this, you die, you're done. That's end of game. Dun, 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 dun. So wake up, please do your part, get out and do something. If you really love your kids, grandkids, your wife, your child, your brother, your sister, or you hate them, if you want to see them just suffer with you around the earth, then keep them around by saving the environment. I will see you next week. That'll be November 19th. That'll be broadcast number 154. Thanks for hanging in there.